The Sofia Gray Show.
Hello, listeners and kinky friends. Welcome to the Sofia Gray Show, where we discuss all things sex, kinks, and fetishes. From the sex stories to the latest trends in the erotic world, we talk taboo transparently. This podcast is brought to you by Sofia Gray, the largest used underwear marketplace. I'm Lacey Bloom, and for today's episode, I'm talking all things Outercourse with stand-up comedian and host of the Manwhore podcast, Billy Procida. Welcome to the show, Billy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. I've actually just recently started listening to Manwhore podcast, and I feel like maybe I'll ask you, should I go back and start at the very beginning, or should I just pick up with your adventures now?
I mean, it just depends like how much patience you have for a dude in his 20s. I started that show when I was 24, so I'm actually as I have a document on my computer right now. I'm adding a couple of bumpers to the first couple of episodes just to be like, hey, everyone, talking to you from the future. You know, I was dumb then. I'm less dumb now. So if you're ever like, I don't know about the show, to try like recent episodes, like from the last 100 or 200 episodes. Because I've done like over 300 shows. And, you know, I'd like to think that the show has improved over the years. But some people really do enjoy to like hear the whole journey.
Yeah.
I started my podcast because I had this weird problem where women would sleep with me, but they wouldn't date me. And I wanted to find out why. So I think if you're interested in like my journey, then yeah, starting from the beginning is really good to do. But if you're just interested in some like fun, sex positive, cool stuff, kinky stuff, freaky stuff, lovey-dovey relationship stuff, then you can kind of pop in wherever.
All the best things. What a great list of things to, enjoy on a podcast. Well, and congratulations from one podcaster to another. You're coming up on 6 years of the Manwhore podcast.
Yeah. Longest job I've ever had.
Yeah, we can, anybody that's an artist, comedian, actor, I mean, I feel like we can only hope for something to last 6 years. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you very much. And congrats on your new show.
Oh, thank you so much. We're having the time of our life so far. And especially now that we're getting so many guests, we can, talk to people like you and, get your views and everything on dating and sex and kink. And let's take it back. Think all the way back to the beginnings of the Manwhore podcast. I know it was almost 6 years ago today. You mentioned that you started it because you were feeling like women wouldn't date you. They would only sleep with you. How did you come up with the idea to start a podcast?
Well, I was starting to notice like throughout college and just after college, I was hooking up with a lot of people. But every time I wanted to escalate, every time I wanted to, get more serious or become exclusive or whatever, it was always the woman who wanted to just keep it casual. And I was just getting really frustrated with that. And when it happened for like the umpteenth time, I figured like, fine, let's do this. Let's do a podcast. Let's find out why. I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a blog or a web series or a podcast or whatever. But eventually I just settled on buying a couple microphones and contacting some past hookups to see if they would even, consider coming on. And when I got enough, yeses or tentative yeses, I was like, all right, I think we can do this.
I love it. And for anybody that hasn't listened just yet to, the entire 6-year journey, have you found, from talking with some of your exes and ex hookups, have you gotten some of the answers you were looking for?
Some. It's interesting. Of course, like there's no magic bullet answer. It's not like I was doing this one specific thing that made me unlovable. But I did learn things about individual interactions. I learned that I'm slightly condescending to younger partners. Oops. And sometimes they would give clarity to a situation that, maybe there was stuff going on that I had no idea about. Think about all the times like someone ghosted you and how pissed off you were and how much you went around to your friends and you complained and you bitched and you moaned and you had no idea what was going on with that human being. Because technically, someone you went on one date with and you're chatting with, they don't owe you shit. So to get all mad at them, you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know if somebody died. You don't know if they got really sick. You don't know if they lost their job. And the 7 people they matched with on Tinder kind of all fell by the wayside. We really do center ourselves in our life story because, well, it's our story. But we don't think about it's kind of like, Wicked. We saw Wizard of Oz and we're like, wow, that green lady is a total cunt. And then, you know, we see Wicked and we're like, oh no, she was just bullied a lot.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point. Well, and super sidebar, I have to tell you, I just watched a YouTube video about behind the scenes of The Wizard of Oz, the movie, and that shit was fucked up, man. They were snowing asbestos on the actors and making Judy Garland diet on coffee and cigarettes. So, you know, there you go. Golden age of Hollywood, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I have to say, I love the title of your podcast a lot. I really love that you're basically, it almost seems like reclaiming the term man-whore. Or man-whore. So could you tell me a little bit about why you chose to take on that specific title?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's nothing too crazy. I came up with a bunch of titles, and Manwhore podcast is the one that stuck out the most. But at the same time, it was something that a few women would refer to me as. And I tried a lot of things in college and just after college. I went to school in New York City, and I lived in New York right after graduation. So Craigslist was super active out here. So I've had a lot of experiences, a lot of different types of experiences. I've tried a lot of stuff. I went to, you know, a failed gangbang. I went to bukkakis. I met up with strangers in public places. I webcammed. I did a lot of. I watched some couple fuck, and then they came too quick before I finished, which I thought was rude, because then they were like, "You got to get out." I was like, "You didn't tell me I had to come before you. I can't predict what your stamina is like, dude." So I tried a lot of stuff, and I was also always very open about my sexuality or just sex in general. I never thought it was super weird. I thought it was something that we should be allowed to talk about. So I think that me being, for lack of a better word, slutty or promiscuous led some women to jokingly be like, ha, 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 you're such a man whore. And then it was like, but like, why won't you love me back?
Right.
So,
you're embracing that label.
Yeah. But of course, you know, we do live in a society that we live in. So I understand when you see man whore in my face, you know, there's caution. So that's why we have the subtitle there. It's a sex positive quest for love. You know, you throw in a couple buzzwords to let them know it's not just some dude, you know, bragging about all the pussy smashed.
Yeah, I banged this girl on Tinder last night. Now I got her on the podcast. Surprise, babe.
Yeah, I know what my face looks like, so I gotta offset that.
Oh my gosh. No, I love that. It is interesting, though, that we do live in a time where I guess man whore is like the equivalent of what we would label a woman as a slut, right?
Well, I would say that, I mean, if anyone's read the Ethical Slut, which is a great book, I recommend to everybody, you know, I love their definition of a slut, which is a slut is anyone of any gender who thinks like sex is for pleasure and pleasure is great, you know, like that, and that like pleasure shouldn't be shameful.
No.
So I think we can all be sluts. I'm a slut. You can be a slut. You don't have to be a slut. Be a slut if you want to. Don't if you don't.
I want to be. I think we should all be sluts.
Like, go out there and slut it up.
Slut up or shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for anybody that's tuning into the Manwhore podcast, do you have a specific episode to recommend to them? One of your favorites?
Well, do you mean like for me and my story, or just like great ones in general? Because, you know, probably the best one that showcases what the show can be is episode 260 with my genderqueer ex Shay, and we had a very gnarly, very bad breakup. I want to say now it's going on 2 years ago. We recorded like almost exactly a year after the breakup, and it was a bad breakup. And that was the first time I'd had like a conversation with them. And that was really fucking heavy. That was one of the most difficult episodes I've ever recorded. But it's also like not the funniest episode. It's not the most chipper episode, you know, that I've done. But there's also I mean, I would say like anything in the last 100, 200 episodes are great. I'd say check any of them out, you know, see what titles tickle your fancy. I mean, but I also love things with like Nina Hartley. She had a great episode. I did an episode where I got a happy ending massage and interviewed her during the massage.
Oh my God, I love it.
We also did one where it was like I call them the oral sex auditions, where my sexually frustrated friend Roxanne She was complaining about dudes who don't eat pussy or don't do it well and brag about it. So we held auditions, and I had 5 guys come over at separate times, and we did like pre-game and post-game interviews. And in between, they had 12 minutes to make a first impression with my friend. Using tongues and fingers only, penis stays in the pants.
Ooh.
And then after each guy would leave the apartment, she would come and like tell us how it really went down.
Okay, that's the reality show that I need in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been binging that Netflix show Love is Blind, but this sounds a lot more promising.
Yeah, I like to think this is more fun. It's better than the trash reality TV that's out there. I like doing gimmicky episodes like that. I went to like a couples only clothing optional resort. I'm not like supposed to say swinger resort because of the marketing team or something, but it's a swinger resort kind of.
Call it what it is.
Yeah. So we did an episode where I found a couple to like fuck in my suite, and then me and my date for the weekend and our 2 neighbors next to us, we sat outside the sliding glass doors and we did commentary.
Oh, good. I love it. It's like you guys are like those guys from the Muppets, but dirty.
Yeah, and like a little more positive, like not shitting on them, but being like, oh man, he made her squirt that quick. Wild. There's a lot of good juicy stuff out there.
Emphasis on juicy for sure.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a lot, a little bit for everybody, which is fantastic. I mean, after 6 years, it seems like there has to be. So that's awesome. I think it's really interesting too that you do bring on ex-partners, and I know it's helpful for you on your journey. Have they been really, have they responded well to being invited onto the show and talking through some things with you?
So the qualifications in that regard are like anyone I've hooked up with in some capacity. And for me, that can be like a very heavy makeout session or full on, fucking or anything in between. So it's not just like people I've fucked. It's just people I've shared a sexual space with. And, I think I've had about like 100 of those women on, but there's still a bunch who have, I've not asked yet, or they have been like, no fucking way. Sometimes it's bad timing for them. They're like, hey, I'm super pregnant. Like, not right now. It's a range. I've asked people who I never thought would do it, who were instantly like, fuck yeah. And I've asked people who I thought were, it was a no brainer. And they were like, like a comedian. I hooked up with this comedian once who she had a book coming out. And then I asked her to do it, and she's like, I don't want anyone to know that I went down on you. Like she's like, I don't want anyone to know that we've been naked together. I'd be like, oh shit.
Oh man. Oh, that's it. That's interesting.
She's like, I will forego publicity just so that no one has to know we hooked up.
Just so nobody knows that we were intimate.
I was like, look, I wasn't a huge fan of the encounter either, but come on here.
But I'm trying to help you sell a book. Come on.
Yeah, we're both in the content business.
Oh, that's so interesting. I guess my follow-up would be that your guests that you have had on the show, the ones who have agreed to come on and they are, ex-hookups, ex-makeouts, whatever it might be, have they come on the show thinking that they're trying to sort of answer some unanswered questions between the two of you? Or is it just, lots of giggles and fun?
I would say both. Everyone's got their own agenda. Some of them are doing it because why not? Some of them do it because they do have questions. Some of them just think they think it's a really fun idea.
Yeah.
Or when in the case of Shay, honestly, the ball's on them. They hit me up because they were launching an Indiegogo for their pilot that they wrote so they could shoot that. And then they wanted to plug we hadn't had a full conversation in the year since we broke up. They text me saying, hey, we are launching the Indiegogo for that project I was working on. Could me and my director come on the podcast to talk about it? I was like, I mean, you can come on the podcast. Your director's not welcome, and you can plug your Indiegogo like any other guest, but we got some shit to fucking talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We got some things to get to the bottom of.
That's good.
So yeah, everyone's got their own motivation. I don't really like needle them for why they agreed. I'm like, you said yes, let's get it in the can before you change your mind.
Yeah, that's good. Have you rekindled anything with any exes that have come on the show?
Yeah.
You don't have to name names, but that was something that I was thinking about, that I could definitely see that becoming a possibility for sure.
Yeah, that's happened a few times. Sometimes it's like we hook up after recording, or sometimes we like that's the thing though, because these are people with whom at some point we shared some kind of connection. There was a spark at some point. And so it's sometimes sitting down one-on-one talking for an hour and having an open and honest conversation, it almost feels like the first date since I've last seen them. And sometimes it rekindles things. Yeah. So sometimes like we tried dating again.
Why you hooked up in the first place.
Before I somehow fucked it up, I'm sure.
Don't blame it all on yourself.
I don't know. I'm pretty difficult, but I mean, I'll tell you one heartbreaking story where this was the first year and a half of the show, and her name's Emily, and I don't remember the episode number, but we before I record, I ask like a few pre-interview questions, and one of them is there anything you specifically do want to talk about? And usually the answer is no. This woman says, because we had only slept together one night. We went on one date one night. And she says, I definitely want to talk about that night. I say, okay. And I turn to hit record, and my finger's on the button, and I look back, and this woman is in full tears. So I I took my hand off, and I'm like, whoa, hold on, what's going on? And she tells me. And then I say, do you mind if I hit record and we get this on? And she says, absolutely. And so I hit record, and I say, hey, Emily, so why don't you tell everyone what you just told me? And our date was like maybe 2-ish years prior to recording. And she says, I thought I raped you that night.
Whoa.
Yeah. She apparently, because I didn't, when I brought her back to my place, I said, hey, I don't love fucking the first time I hook up with somebody, so I'd like to take that off the table. She said, sure, totally. And a lot of times when women say, sure, totally, we don't have to fuck, they're always like, I'm definitely going to fuck this guy. I think Taylor Tomlinson has a joke about that in her like new special.
Which I actually just watched, so I completely understand.
Yeah. So like, I think sometimes they think I'm doing it as a move, and I'm like, no, like I just don't want to. And
right.
So we go back to my place. We're hooking up, and she keeps bugging me to fuck. She's not taking it. She's not coercing. She's not blackmail. She's just being annoying in the same way I'm sure many women who sleep with dudes have experienced them be annoying in bed trying to fuck. Can we? It's like, they're not trying to assault anybody, but they're really going to annoy the fuck out of you.
Right.
Until you kick them out of bed or fucked up.
Or give in. Yep.
Yeah, which I advocate, kick them out of bed. But anyways, I finally acquiesced. I said, sure, I got a condom and we had sex. I didn't, it was whatever. So 6 months afterwards, she used to always think women can't rape men. Always thought that, she said.
A lot of people still do.
Plenty do.
Yep.
6 months after me, she started dating a man who apparently had been, and and apparently it really traumatized him, and she really started to learn about that, and she felt terrible. And then her mind went to that night, and for a year and a half, she was holding on to, oh my God, I think I harmed somebody.
Oh, that's terrible. I can't imagine having to sit with
and
that
to think about like holding on to that. Yeah. And so to like appease her, or to like make her feel this is why it's like, to make her feel better about how she totally didn't rape me, I had to tell her a story about when a woman did rape me.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was a wild episode.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you're having conversations, important conversations like that on the podcast, because I think you said it very early on. If you see the name, the Manwhore podcast, your brain can immediately think of something specific, and I think you're touching on so many subjects that need to be touched on, that people need to listen to. And, I'm sure a lot of them will connect with them. So I think that's fantastic that you're having discussions like that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a stupid slut show. It mostly is, but at times we talk about good things.
Yeah. So, okay, what do you have coming up for the Manwhore podcast? I know the 6-year anniversary is coming up quickly, But yeah, so what can we expect in the, upcoming episodes, years to come?
Well, I got a bunch of shows. I just went on like a month-long road trip, and so I recorded a bunch of shows. So I've got some really great ones coming out. I mean, I just put one out last week, whenever that is in the time-space continuum of podcast land. But like I recently put on an episode with this musician, Tom Goss. He had a fascinating story about walking in on his husband with another man and how that led them to open up the relationship. So that was an amazing story. Yeah, Tom's episode is great. I've got some other like really good ones coming up. I've got an intimacy coordinator from Hollywood. That's like a whole job that they have where it's like just to help coordinate the like the sex scenes in movies and TV, and just
which I think is so smart.
Totally. And it like they deal with like all the on-set consent and everything like that. That's a really good one. I've got some porn stars like Brooklyn Chase, Jesse DeBy, Lauren Phillips, Alex Jett coming on. So yeah, I got some cool people. Taylor Chandler, who do you remember the Michael Phelps controversy when like he got the DUI and it turns out he was like dating this like intersex woman? So her.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Michael Phelps's ex-girlfriend. Or if Michael Phelps's lawyers are listening, Michael Phelps's alleged ex-girlfriend, but I believe her. So yeah, some cool stuff there. And then also in August, I have my annual Manwhore Con in New York City, which it's a fan meetup weekend I hold every year. This is going to be the 4th year we do it. And it's just like a weekend of like fun, sex positive events and hangouts. Some naked naughtiness that is not on the itinerary, but when you put my fans in a room together, apparently they do shit to each other and I can't.
It just happens. Look, you're bringing all the sluts together.
Orgies, they just kind of happen. The problem is it's not marketed as an orgy weekend because I don't want to scare away people who don't want to do that. But like when all the activities are done, you do what you're going to do. We do a live podcast. We do a bar crawl. Sometimes there's like some sort of sex ed workshop. Last year we had like a Meet Billy's Mom Q&A where listeners could just like pop open a drink and my mom sat in the middle of a circle and just like they could ask her why I am the way I am.
Well, damn, if you didn't sell me on the orgy, I mean, I think you sold me on that.
But yeah, ManwhoreCon comes up in August. I'm really excited about that because it's really cool, like see fans and like interact with them. Like it really is just like a very cool hangout with like a few dozen fan whores and just, getting to know all these like different people. Cause like the people who listen to my show, like they're men, they're women, they're mostly women. They're queer, they're straight, they span a variety of like gender modifiers. Some of them are kinky, some are monogamous, some are poly. Like it really does span all the different spectrums.
No, that's fantastic. Well, and what a great way to compile everybody together once a year. So, I mean, I feel like I'm going to have to mark that on my calendar for August.
Sure. You can find the Manwhore podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. That's Manwhore, one word, by the way. Didn't know I had to teach that one when I chose the title. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Billy is Procida, and I'm on Twitter at the Billy Procida. That's Procida.
Perfect. Wonderful. So there you go. There's Billy and the Manwhore podcast. And Billy is also joining us today to discuss our topic of the day, which happens to be ways to have sex without penetration, aka Outercourse. I have to say to start with, I'm a big fan of this topic. I'm a big fan of Outercourse. I think we have this unnecessary obsession with thinking of sex as penetration and only penetration. What about you, Billy? What are your thoughts on Outercourse?
I'm a fan of people doing whatever they think feels good and knowing the various options that they have. I think a lot of people default into the usual script, which is, making out, clothes off, dick sucking. If he's a decent human being, some cunnilingus, and then, dick in her one position, dick in her second position, and then like, doggy to come. I mean, look, I think people who fuck people of the opposite sex really need to look to queer people for how to like spice things up and add variety. Because like spicing things up isn't just like, oh, put on this mask, call me this name, let's do it in this place. It can also be just like the penis and the vagina is not the end all be all of a sexual encounter.
Yes.
And I think you can learn so much from different types of people on how to have some fun times. So I'm a big advocate of it, especially as someone who, I don't always love to fuck people the first time I meet them, because I want to get to know how their body works. And Outercourse is a great way to get to know this body without fucking this body. Because to me, it's very embarrassing to put my dick in somebody and not know if if they're feeling good.
Right. No, well, and I love the way that you phrase that we should look to queer couples, because I think when we think of intercourse or sex, we specifically attribute it with predominantly cis straight couples, that it is a P and a V and that is it. And so I love that we're turning to Outercourse, like you said, to get to know each other's bodies, but you can also have a sexual experience and never put anything into anybody else. That is absolutely fine. I think the other danger is thinking of anything that's not intercourse as foreplay as opposed to Outercourse, because foreplay, like you mentioned, it implies that it comes before something. It is all leading up to something, and that something is typically heterosexual sex, dick in vagina. That's it. So if we can think of it more as Outercourse, and Billy and I are going to touch on all the many different ways that you can try Outercourse, then I think you're going to maybe even surprise yourself, as well as find some great ways for you and your partner to play around in ways you didn't even think about before.
Yeah. And there's also the, there's also the assumption that something that isn't PIV sex is less serious.
Right.
Or that's not real sex, or that it's completely safe, like you can still get STIs from oral, and hand stuff can still feel great. But I'm sure we'll get into the various options in a few.
Yeah, for sure. So we published a article on Sofia Gray titled 33 Ways You Can Have Amazing Outercourse. And Billy and I have perused the article. I'm sure we each have our own preferences. Billy, do you have any favorite Outercourse techniques you'd like to share?
How about you define what Outercourse means to you? Is it just anything that's not PIV, or is it anything that's not penetrative at all?
For me, Outercourse is any sex act that doesn't involve vaginal or anal intercourse, because I definitely don't want to keep it strictly heteronormative.
Sure. Then eating pussy is my favorite of those.
There you go. Okay, good. I'm sure a lot of women will be pleased to hear that.
Yeah, that's a big time favorite. And hand stuff is also vastly underrated. One that I was thinking about was using toys on a partner. Is a great one that I don't think we think about often, because toys can be intimidating, or either because you're worried about it replacing you, or they're intimidating because you don't know how to use them.
Right.
But sometimes they can be fucking great. There's this one toy called the Motor Bunny that I've worked with frequently, and it's basically a ride on top It's basically a boat engine with a dildo on it, and
Nice.
It can get intense. And I've had a lot of fun with people that who've never touched my penis. Just sometimes I put out Reddit ads. I'm like, who wants to come ride my $1,000 sex toy? And then they kind of come over and they ride it, and I control it and I edge them.
Yes.
And we have a grand old time.
Yeah.
Like maybe I jerk myself off while it's going on, but that was all the interaction we had, was me controlling the intensity of the vibrations.
Yeah, well, and I feel like you mentioned a few different things in there too. Edging, I think mutual masturbation is personally one of my favorites, that I do think, whether you're using a toy or not, or, you're jerking off your partner or yourself, I find that so hot. And honestly, I find that much more intimate than actual penetrative sex a lot of the time.
Yeah, and also sometimes I'm just a little tired, or sometimes I need a break. I mean, I did some marathon sex with somebody where we were doing we were edging me with a combination of PIV, oral, me breaking the go down on her, and sometimes just me touching myself. I really enjoyed like the parts where we were just like laying in bed, touching ourselves next to each other.
Yeah.
Like that's so much fun, vastly underrated. And it can serve as a fun, like in between, like a pause, like a break, or it's a good build up.
Yeah. Keep things going till the next round for sure.
Yeah. A little tip to the penis havers. If you're going to do something that involves you jerking yourself off with somebody, like, obviously masturbation, you do it however you do it, but I recommend for aesthetic reasons, not beating it like a dumb chimpanzee, like stroke it out nice and long. God forbid you moaned or made a facial expression or two. I promise that is going to heighten the experience for the person who's watching you.
Yeah, no, oh, for sure. Absolutely. Speaking as somebody that's watched that, I mean, I find it a lot more pleasurable for myself if it lasts longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah, like I used to be a cam boy, and it was way better when I'm doing long strokes than quick jackhammers on my cock. Partially because when you're camming, I was getting paid per minute at the time, so you want to draw it out,
right?
But also it's more aesthetically pleasing. You are seeing like all of the cock. You're seeing your hand go all the way up and all the way down. There's lots more movement. And it's just more erotic and hotter to watch.
Yeah, and it gives you the opportunity to just kind of study your partner and what they like and what the little intricacies of their pleasure, like watching their face, watching their hands, whatever it is. Like that's why that's definitely at the top of my list for sure. But let's just run through a few other ways that people can have amazing outer course. And I think we should start with something I find so underrated, which is nipple play. Yeah, I mean, some people, not everybody, can orgasm just from having their nipples played with. That's not to say that if you don't orgasm from having your nipples touched, there's something wrong with you. But I think we also need to kind of step away from this idea that outer course, inner course, whatever it is, has to all lead up to this grand orgasm of all orgasms. Like sometimes it's just about the experience. You can blow on nipples, you can kiss them, suck them, lick them, bite them. There really are a lot of ways to play around with them and see what works for you and your partner.
Yeah, in general with sex, it's the less emphasis you put on the orgasm, the better. And so instead of like obsessively asking, this is especially for people with vaginas, because that's definitely a more common question. I don't think we often are that confused of if a dick came or not. but like, constantly asking, did you come? How about instead, does that feel good?
Yes.
Does this feel good? What can I do to make you feel better? Focus on the pleasure, and orgasms will likely come. And if not, that's okay too. Just focus on like having a good, fun time. I've had sex where I have not came and I had a fucking blast. We were just like rolling around and we did fuck, or we did do nipple play, or we did do mutual masturbation. And it was just like a fun hour. And sometimes you come, sometimes you don't, so long as it feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And talk about feeling good. I think another way to really set the mood, and again, think of this less as foreplay and more of, this could be the end of your sexual experience, is a massage. I don't know why anybody would turn down an erotic massage because, oh my gosh, does it feel good? Especially if you put in a little bit of oil or lotion. You can create a calming atmosphere with like the lights down low, some candles. You can play with temperature play if you're interested in that. Drip a little candle wax. So I think it's a great way to really physically get to know somebody's body.
Absolutely. I love a good massage. I said earlier, I interviewed a happy ending massage lady during the massage, and I mean, I just love massage. Like if I get a happy ending, it's like, I don't want some hot 22-year-old who's going to rub my back for 10 minutes and tell me to turn over. It's like, oh, no. Before you jerk me off, I need a good, real massage. Like that's the only reason I need to be jerked off at the end of a massage, is because the massage is so good and so erotic that by the end of it, I am very aroused.
Right. It all led up to this point.
Yeah. If massage didn't feel so dope, I wouldn't need a hand job at the end of it.
It's true. How do you feel? I mean, obviously you're a fan of receiving massages. Do you think you give a good massage?
I used to think that. I don't know how my massage game is as like in high school. I would exchange massage back rubs with a lot of the girls, like in the front hall. Like I'd sit on a couch, and there'd be a girl behind me sitting up on top of the couch massaging me, and then I'd be massaging someone in front, and then people would kind of like circle through. So I think like at 16, I had dope thumbs, but for like full body massage, like I could use a class.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like a class that I would absolutely attend too if somebody was offering a class on how to give great massages. So, I'm going to put that out in the universe and hope that it manifests. Okay, if you want to try out some light BDSM, I would say spanking is a great way to get started. You can play it a little more dominant and incorporate some role play if you like. But it is, I feel like, a lighter way to get interested in BDSM and then move into flogging, whipping, any other method of impact play if that's what you're interested in. So I don't know, Billy, are you a fan of spanking?
I am like a service top. Like I'm switchy, but I lean more submissive. So when I'm like in charge, it's because like I know she really likes a guy in charge. So
Sure.
I need to know that that's what the person wants before I'm doing that. Otherwise, it's not really doesn't do it for me. So when I've had partners I had an ex who was in the spanking, like being spanked. So like, yeah, I'd spank her, but I wasn't very good at it. Or I thought I was. Well, first I had to work on my aim. Let me say that, people, if you're spanking, careful of that tailbone. Okay, you gotta get under the cheek because otherwise it's gonna fucking hurt them in the not sexy way. But the way I found out I was bad at spanking was on my 26th birthday.
Oh no.
My ex at the time, she tried to organize a reverse gangbang for me, and it fell through like the morning of. It was fine. So we went out to dinner with like one of her closest friends and that woman's partner, and we ended up back at their place, and we were just like hanging out, like fooling around, and her friend says, "Billy, do you want to watch me spank her?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she starts. So we get my ex naked, and the woman starts spanking her, and she's spanking her exactly the way I do, like the same intensity, getting the butt kind of red a little bit. And I'm thinking like, oh yeah, she spanks like I spank. I got this down. I know what I'm doing. And then this like 106-pound Asian girl said, "Okay, so those are the warm-up spanks. They they tenderize the skin. They like prepare the butt to be spanked." And I thought, "Oh fuck, my spanks are warm-up spanks." I just got outdone by someone half my weight. Fuck. So I had to like really work on winding up and hitting harder. But
up your spank game.
I did have to up my spank game. That was embarrassing.
Hey, you know what though? Better to learn it, and rather than just wonder if they were ever hard enough.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, and notice how all the ones we've touched on so far, most of them aren't even really concentrated in our, P&V locations. So, I mean, Outercourse definitely applies also to our entire body. But we will move into some other ones that I think people will be very familiar with, like grinding, a little bit of dry humping, wet humping, whatever feels good for you. A high school, favorite for sure. I like to throw it back to feel like I'm in high school again. I like a good grinding session more than the next person.
I did up until I stopped wearing underwear in like 2012 or 2013. So, my grinding has to be like nude grinding. And then that's tricky and dangerous. That causes some accidental slip and slides.
Absolutely.
Can I bring up one that's on this list that I did not know was like an actual thing that now I'm like, whoa, the kunyaza?
Yes. In fact, that was one I was looking at, both the kunyaza and frauding, which were both ones that I was less familiar with. And frauding to me makes sense because it's designated for two men or people with penises. So as someone without a penis, it makes sense that probably wasn't part of my life. But the kunyaza, that's, oh my gosh, so fascinating. A man rhythmically and firmly striking the clitoris with his penis. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's something I'm definitely going to try.
Yeah, but I don't know how the white guys are going to do with this one because it's requiring rhythm.
Yeah. Very true.
It's like they're always gonna be hitting you on the 2 and 4.
Not the 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that does. But you know what? It's good, I think, to try new things. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but at least give it a go.
Yeah, but I mean that's one I haven't done like prolonged. I've done that like during sex, like while
Right.
I'm fucking somebody. I've done that, but just not like in a prolonged manner. So I'm curious. I'm gonna have to look that one up and see if I can do it. If it's a thing you do for like 20 minutes or not. Because normally I like to do it just to tease when I need to give my dick a break from the sex.
Right.
Give it some love taps on the doorknob.
And that's what I was thinking of too. But I'm like picturing this, this is a practice that's been practiced in South Africa for hundreds of years. And kunyaza literally means to squirt. So I'm wondering, wow, that's got to be a long sustained session of penis hitting clitoris.
Yeah.
So color me intrigued.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Yeah. What else on here tickles your fancy?
Okay, well, I have to say, I am not a toe sucking person per se, but I do appreciate. We've talked about this on the podcast. We actually did an episode on foot fetish, and my partner in crime, Tracy, she likes to have her feet worshipped. So I know that if she was here, she would definitely want us to mention toe sucking.
Well, just for her, we're gonna bring up the grossness that is toe sucking.
Are you one of those people that's like really not into feet and thinks feet are gross?
I'm one of those people where when I get a massage, I tell them you can skip the feet. There's something about, your hands all over my feet and then all over my dick that I'm not really into. I don't really want to cross-pollinate that.
It's so interesting. I feel like so many people have a thing about their feet. They're either really into feet or they're so opposed of don't look at my feet, don't touch my feet. I don't want to be anywhere near your feet. It's polar opposites.
Yeah. Hey, you do you, boo-boo. I just am like, I don't need that.
So then I'm going to take a wild guess and say you're probably opposed to a foot job.
Let me put this. It's going to depend on the feet, the lady, and how badly I need, if that is the only option being presented, how badly I need to come.
Okay. So she's got to have really good feet.
Yeah. And it has to be like the only option, and I have to be incredibly horny. Because there are going to be times where she's like, look, I'm giving you a foot job or nothing else. And I'll be like, I don't know. We just make out while I touch myself? I'd rather at that point get myself off than the feet. But if I'm in love with my partner and that's what she needs, and she's like, I can't come unless you jizz on my big toe, then I'm like, I guess I'm jizzing on your big toe because I love you and I care about you.
Thanks, babe. Happy birthday.
Yeah, not even just a birthday, just because when I want to be nice.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and it seems like, if you are interested in a foot job, or maybe your partner isn't interested in a foot job, there's some other great options that kind of, I think, will give you a similar feeling. There's intergluteal sex, which it's so funny. I call it butt sex, but not in the way, I think people would think of butt sex. So
yeah. I've done this one though. It can be nice, but again, it's difficult to just do that.
Yeah.
And not want to just slide into one of the holes down there, but it's,
right.
It can feel good. You get all nice and wet and whatnot. But at that point, I'll be honest, at that point, if we're going to commit to not penetrating, then I'd rather be doing that, but on the front side and just like rub it, like basically fucking the labia in a way. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'd rather be doing that than doing on the backside. But again, you can lube up kind of any two fleshy areas and eventually make a penis come from them.
It's very true. I mean, besides, intergluteal sex, we've got our titty sex for sure. That definitely, I think, eliminates sort of the possibility. Oh, I won't say it eliminates the possibility of putting it in a hole, because we definitely got the mouth up there as well.
Yeah, I've never seen the appeal of titty sex. I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, the hand is going to do a way better. It's purely for the visual. And I guess maybe it's just me, but I just don't need that pornographic. Like, I think this is one of those, I don't like to blame porn for much. I don't think porn is the root of all evil. I think the lack of sex education is the root of that evil. But titty fuck seems to purely come from the porn world. And I just don't see the appeal of this one, especially if you don't have a massive dick. Like, this is just a great way to make yourself feel bad real quick. You know, like if those are big enough titties, she's going to dwarf it.
That's very true.
She's got big tits and small hands. Choose the small hands. It's better for your self-esteem.
Okay, well, if we're stepping away from butt sex and we're stepping away from titty fucking, how about axillism, which is an armpit job?
Red.
That's a red for you. Okay, that's absolutely fine.
To anyone who doesn't know what red is, red's a very common safe word for no fucking way or stop. And I think armpit job is where I draw the line.
It's definitely not something that appeals to me too. If you're all about the armpit, that's fine. I know for me, that would be one that I'd be more self-conscious about just because of, I don't know, I'm a sweaty human being.
Well, you know, if we're having some pretty good sex, hopefully we will both become sweaty human beings. Yeah, but
That's true.
I know people are into all sorts of things. I mean, I interviewed a porn chick who she made exclusively bodily fetish porn. So like armpit stuff or giantess things. Or she had one video where it was like she's giving a blowjob, but she's hiccuping the whole time.
Oh,
so
wow.
You know, there's something for everybody. There is something that I would count as Outercourse on here. Well, Outercourse that's not on your list.
Oh, let's hear it.
Medical play.
Oh, so fascinating, by the way.
Medical play, you could combine it with needle play. They're technically different, but the actions can overlap. So, but like stuff with needles, that's definitely a big thing. I think there was like 6 months in New York City where like at every sex party people were doing needle play. It was a little freaky for me, but I was just like every orgy I went to, people were bringing out the alcohol swabs and needles. And I was like, it was like a sex party fad for like 6 months in New York.
So interesting too. In fact, I want to say we actually do have a blog out or is coming out that is about medical play, and it really is still on the rise. I mean, I know maybe it's just hitting the West Coast now.
But yeah, so that's definitely one. I saw a guy.
I think that's a great one to add.
I saw a guy at a party once. He got his balls filled with saline so that they would blow up to his scrotum stretched out to this massive size. And then he walked around the party like he didn't have massive balls. And to me, that was the most offensive part.
Offensive in a good way or bad way?
It's like, don't sit here talking to me like you don't have big balls. Like, let's acknowledge what the fuck is happening right now. I'm not just going to ask you like, oh yeah, how's the wife? No, let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not pretend. Look, this is valid and this is how you get off and that's great, but we're not going to sit here and pretend that this is normal.
Can we talk about this? Let's acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Yes, please, because they're massive. Oh my gosh. He said that he said it gave him a sense of fullness. Like he felt like his ball sack was full. And I was like, oh, interesting.
How
like weighty.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then
I mean, whatever works for you, you know?
Yeah. And then for those curious, the way it comes down is the saline just absorbs back into your body over a couple of days and they shrink.
Yeah, that's one that I'll definitely have to investigate further. But moving past medical play, I mean, there's plenty more BDSM acts like power play, sensory play. You know, if you really want to turn things up with a little bit of fire play, you know, there are so many different acts that you can engage in that either fit into your intercourse, but also can just be experienced as outercourse. Mm-hmm. I think the last one that I'll mention, which I know I've incorporated into my life and I find a lot more, I'll even say just fun, because I think sex should be fun, is sensory play. I think sensory play is really interesting when we think about sex being predominantly about touch, but there are so many other sensations that you can experience as well. You can bring a blindfold in, you can play with your senses using candles, feathers, ice, food, you know, flavored lube. I mean, there's really so many different ways you can introduce sensory play into either a vanilla relationship or something a little more kinky.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yay! Were there any more? I mean, obviously the list goes on, and I'm sure there are plenty more beyond the 33 that we've accounted for. But do you have any more that you want to share with us?
I mean, I'm a fan of getting my ass eaten, so I'll throw that in there. So,
yeah,
if you can just, make sure, I'm saying this mostly to fellas, but I've seen some hairy holes on ladies too. Everyone just, shave your hole. Unless they're into hairy stuff, then great. But, I like to always be prepared just in case someone's going to lick my hole. And I think you should be too. But, that's a great one to toss in there. Otherwise, this is a great list. And people should go to sofiagray.com and check it out.
Well, thank you very much for that endorsement. And thank you so much for joining me today, Billy. I'm a fan of the podcast. I can't wait to listen to more. And I hope everybody else also checks out the Manwhore podcast and obviously meets me in New York in August for Manwhore Con.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. We're doing Brooklyn this time. So it's going to be pretty fun.
Whether you're looking to buy or sell used panties, Sofia Gray has got you covered. If you want to earn some extra cash, you can set up your own shop in minutes and start selling your own used underwear. And they take no commission. You'll keep 100% of every single sale that you make. If you've got a kink for used panties and you're looking to buy your next pair, look no further. Oh, and did we mention the whole process is completely anonymous? Sofia Gray will never share, store, or archive your personal information. The name Sofia Gray won't even appear on your bank receipt. So head on over to sofiagray.com to start selling or buying used panties now. If you're a fan of the podcast, we hope you'll subscribe on your favorite podcast streaming platform. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts to let us know what you think. And while you're at it, feel free to share your feedback or questions by sending us an email to podcast@sofiagray.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Lacey Bloom, and I'm here to say, let them be kinky. There's no kink shaming here.